Hi, I'm Lynn Vieira, and I'm here with kitchen garden designer Ellen Ogden, and we're going to talk about some of the basic tools that you need to have a garden. I mean, it's exciting to get the catalogs and to go in the garden stores, and you want to buy everything, but what do you really need?
Yeah, well, you need to be organized. Just like in the kitchen, it makes sense to have a storage unit, whether you have a garden shed or a garden bag. It really helps to be organized, because once you get going in the garden, you're going to be like losing your tools and losing your gloves, and so keeping everything in one place is the #1 key. Secondly, I would recommend not getting a lot of things until you actually need them. I always use a garden fork and a garden trowel and markers and of course a beautiful watering can, but you don't maybe need everything that's advertised in the garden store. So sort of, poke along as you go.
Now, what are these over here?
Well, this is a homemade version of these, which is really a planting line, which can also be used as a dibble. A dibble is an old-fashioned tool. This is actually a real dibble, and it's a way of marking the rows so that you plant things in a nice straight row. And if you can't find one of these, you can just go ahead and use some kindling wood and some nice twine and create your own sticks and twine. You can do a lot with those in a garden.
Great.
The other thing I like is I'm going to show you some things from my garden bag.
Okay.
This may not look like something you want to bring to the garden, but when you're first starting out, it's really important to measure your space. Sometimes we measure with our feet walking along, thinking, a foot by foot, but it's really good to have an accurate measurement of your space, so you're getting it right from the start.
What else you got in there?
What else do I have in here? I have some great markers. It's really important when you start your seeds and your plants that you actually write down what you're planting and when you're planting it, because a lot can happen from the 1st of June when you put your plants in to the end of the summer, and it's good to keep record. And then of course in the winter, if you use it, you can catch up in your garden diary and make notes of things that worked really well for you so you can do them again.
What about some of the things behind us here?
Well, this is really the main part of the garden. Raised beds, which are beautiful cedar raised beds, which you could use. Some of the garden tools that I use, again, I don't like a lot of clutter. Like in my kitchen, I just have a nice cutting board and 3 sharp knives and a Cuisinart. And same with the garden shed. You don't want to clutter your garden shed with things you don't really need. Some of my favorite tools, I use this hoe. You can see I've had this for about 30 years. It's lasted a long time, and I use this in the garden to dig up the weeds instead of having to lean down. It's nice long handles, so I just go along and scruff it up.
That's great.
I have a garden fork, which is really important. I can't tell you how many times I use this in the garden. Mostly in the spring when I turn over the soil. I don't use a rototiller,
right?
Because I have a small garden, a kitchen garden, and
can't
this
get
is
in
really
those small
important.
spaces with a rototiller.
So this is really good for just turning over that soil. And then of course a shovel is a good idea for when we fill in the raised beds with the soil and the compost, and then a rake for smoothing it out. And this is a little garden trellis. This is an ornament for growing some runner beans. These are just kind of some of the things that I like to have in my garden.
So Ellen, what are these over here?
Oh, well, these are absolutely an essential, especially if you like growing tomatoes, which I assume you're going to put in your garden.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, you've seen those tomato cages in hardware stores,
like
that are cone-shaped ones, and they work, but sometimes they tip over and they're really hard to store. These are wonderful because they're collapsible.
Cool.
And they can slip over the tomato, and the tomato can grow, and then there's another extension you can put up if you have great big tall tomatoes, and then at the end of the season it just folds up and you just hang it up on the wall. So it's a wonderful invention.
Great if you have small spaces outside and inside.
That's right. That's
which
right.
I do. Excellent. Well, as you can see, it doesn't look like you need a lot to get started, and I think I'm ready to put on my clogs and let's get planting.
Great. Let's
All
go.
right.